because they don't want you to think that they are a failure. But that's one of the main reasons why everyone is in this room now. How many of you have doctors who have very similar or even more credentials than I have? Raise your hand. If you have a doctor that is supposed to be world renowned, and he's the best cardiologist, he's the best this doctor, or whatever it may be, how many of you have doctors like that have great resumes? And the funny part is a lot of the patients have these great doctors, but these doctors are always stumped when you come to them and say, hey, I got pain down to my feet, I have pain here, I have pain there, and the doctors usually would give you what? Pills, right? So I always ask other physicians when I'm talking to medical doctors or whatever it may be, what's the percentage of your patients that don't respond well to your treatment? And you'll be shocked, the majority of the doctors will only tell you about their success stories. And most of the medications will only tell you about the success stories. But they won't tell you about the side effects, or they won't tell you about the people that died on the table, they won't tell you about the patient that they adjusted for 10 years and never got well. They only going to tell you about the success stories. Those are testimonials that you hear. So I actually kind of fell into nerve rehab by accident because after playing football in college, I did play football in college, I too suffer from a nerve injury. I tackled a guy wrong. If a lot of guys know that if you tackle with your head down, if you hit somebody the wrong way, you can actually paralyze yourself. And I was almost partially paralyzed for a couple of weeks. I couldn't lift my arms like this, and I couldn't lift my arms out to the side. And then we had some of the best orthopedic surgeons on our team, and what they said to me is, take this Vicodin, 1,000 milligrams of Vicodin to an 18-year-old kid, and get back on the field. So I went back and I'm tackling. I can't even hold the guy, but I'm tackling him with my head, and I ended up developing nerve damage myself. So I went to many, many doctors. I had migraine headaches for many years. I had shoulder problems. How many people got a shoulder problem? Right? And I had low back pain. How many people got low back pain? And so what ended up happening is I had all these injuries, and I could never find anybody to help me. So every time I went to a physical therapist, they do a little bit of treatment, and then they release you, right? And then I went to the orthos, and everybody's giving me medication. I went to a chiropractor. My first chiropractic adjustment actually came as a student in chiropractic school. I never met any chiropractors. I thought chiropractors were quack, like some of you probably right now. They think I'm a quack. But give me some time so I can prove my quackery, right? So I go through and I'm watching all these doctors doing all these treatments, and they were failing. They were failing. And so I have a patient of mine that's at Moffitt Cancer Center. Anybody heard of Moffitt?
Yeah.
So I'm a patient at Moffitt Cancer Center, and a young individual, and the chemo, he's tried 4 different types of chemo and all these different alternatives, and they keep telling him there's nothing he can do. But in the meantime, the chemotherapy is actually causing this person to have numbness with his hands and his feet. And his only thing, he said, I just want to be able to see what my grandchildren feel like. It makes me want to cry when I think about it. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And like can you imagine like hugging your children and you don't really know what that feels like? And so when he came in, I was kind of stumped, and I was like, wait, so what's different? I'm like, you too young for nerve damage from osteoarthritis and all these types of things. And I was mind boggled by it. And then I started to do some research on the medications. And so I said, I just wanted to Google. First I went to Google and said, how many medications cause nerve and joint pain as a side effect? How many medications are available currently right now that's actually causing nerve and joint pain? And the shocking thing that I found, there was over 100 commonly prescribed medications that's causing nerve and joint pain. And the sad part about it is, we all know this, right? Anybody heard a commercial for Vioxx? Back in the days, right? Remember at the end of the commercial, they take this writing and they make it really, really, really small, and then the commercial goes really, really fast. And ironically, the people who will have difficulty with hearing that message at that speed is our seniors, which is all those medications are commonly prescribed, and then our patients with difficulty with vision. Because even if you pause the screen, can you read that writing? It's like font -50, and so you can barely see it. So I found that was pretty terrible. And then I personally got affected by it because my mom was 46 years old. She's taking a blood pressure medication. And if you know somebody like this, just nod your head. You ain't gotta raise your hand. But she was taking a blood pressure medication, and she went into her doctor and said, I got swelling in my feet, and I think it's because of the medication, and they gave her what? Lasix, a water pill. So they give her this water pill, and the water pill, she started to notice that when she was walking, she was having a hard time breathing. Well, because she was beginning to develop fluid on the lungs. So she went to the same doctor and said, hey, look, this is not healthy for me because I'm actually starting to, my vision is going bad. And I noticed that every time if I bite into even a carrot, like I'm chipping my teeth all the time. So what do? They put on a potassium pill. And the potassium pill, what that does is it put more potassium in your body than you have calcium, and now you're having what we call arrhythmia, like your heart is beating all out of control. So my mom, unfortunately, succumbed to those side effects of those medications, and that was my first indication that I, as a physician, I need to do something different because I wasn't even able to save my own mom, right? 3 months later, my grandmother goes in, she's 87 years old, she used to drink, I'm not sure if you guys know what Night Train is, but, you know Night Train? Yeah, so Night Train and Crown Royal, my grandmother drank that until she was 85 years old, no issues. She's healthy as an aunt, she's get out in the garden, she's gardening, do all these things, and I'm from Chicago, so can't tell from my Chicago accent. We don't have accents in Chicago. And only New Yorkers. How many people here from New York? Jersey? Do you guys get discounts to move to Palm Harbor? Because every person I've ever met, I was like from New York and New Jersey. So my grandmother, she slipped on the ice. So you guys know, it's a lot of you are down here because you don't want to mess around with the ice up north. So she slipped on the ice, and of course she fell, and we didn't realize this. We thought she fell because it was ice. But it wasn't the ice that caused her to fail. She was losing her balance because she was on a medication called gabapentin. Anybody ever heard of gabapentin? So gabapentin is a medication that's given often for nerve pain. But it was a medication that was created by the Japanese in 1974 to help as they had it for a pain reliever. But what we found, it was actually designed to help with seizures. So it's actually an anti-seizure medication. So if you have sciatic pain, but no seizures, it's a good chance you can end up on Lyricorp gabapentin. So one of the side effects of gabapentin is loss of balance and coordination. So my grandmother, 85 years old, drinking a little bit, but that day she actually wasn't drinking, but she drank. I was saying that because there's people who, how many of y'all know somebody who lived to 100 or a long time, they smoke every day, cigars, and they ate pigs in the blanket every single day, and they outlived all their kids who are vegan, running, and all this kind of stuff. Like we all know somebody like that, right? But the chances are everyone won't be able to be that anomaly, really what it is. So she falls, she fractures her hip, she ends up in a home, and her will to live goes where? Up or down? Down. So watching this and watching what this did to our family, I'm the only one in our family to actually go to college and graduate. And now all the children in our family are actually in college now. And so I felt the pressure to be able to provide some sort of service or something like that. So right now, I feel like you are all my obligation. Even though I didn't grow up in this community, because I already know that you're probably that 30% of the people that's not getting the results that you would like from your doctors. You spend tons of money, you have Medicare, you have all these different types of insurances, and you're still not happy with where you are. Because if you were happy with what you've been getting from your doctors, there's a good chance that you would not be here. Is that fair to say? Is that fair? And so I'm not going to say that I have all the answers, but I just want to show you that I built my practice on the 30%. And so we're located right here, like walking distance right here in the plaza next to T-Mobile. And one of the things that we wanted to do is provide some safe alternatives to help people get back on their feet and just live a greater quality of life. Look, we already know that everybody's not going to live forever. Who wants to pay taxes forever? I do. Nobody does, right? And so what the goal today is to talk about what causes nerve damage, what are some of the solutions, and I'm only going to talk to you from a natural perspective. Will anybody be against me talking about it from a natural perspective. Because I already know all the different medications. There's 100 of them, you can try them all. But the chances are the medications don't kill you, the side effects will. And I was in a medical cannabis conference with a group of medical doctors. I'm the only chiropractor in the room. And I asked the oncologist there, what is the #1 cause of death for cancer patients? I was curious. You would think that he would say cancer. He didn't say cancer. He said, I don't know. When you radiation, it's the radiation. Because if you take radiation, if I brought a cart with the chemo solution in here right now, and I start giving it out to everybody, would it make everybody healthier or sicker? Sicker. So, and it's not me trying to bash the treatments, because there's a lot of good natural holistic treatments out there that help people deal with cancer. But the reason I'm stating that is because a lot of the other doctors, including chiropractors, don't think this way. They only focus on their 70% of their success patients, and then the 30%, they're gonna blame it on you, right? They're gonna say it's your fault, and they're gonna say it's your genes. Anybody ever heard that?
Yeah.
It must be genetic.
Yeah.
It must be your mom. What did your mom
Yeah.
die from? And I'm saying, well, my mom never exercised, and my mom was high stress. She worked 3 jobs, and she worked around the clock, and she had 3 bad kids, right? And if anybody ever had children, you know that kids can be very stressful and trying to provide for them and things like that. So where are we at now? So where we are at, the medications that they're giving us to help us deal with these things are actually causing a lot of the problems that we have. Now, I can't go tell you to go off your medications, but what you're finding is you're already starting to see a lot of hospitals going out of business and they're closing. And the reason they're closing is because a lot of your generation is beginning to die off. The generation your children's generation are moving towards a more holistic perspective. So they're not quick to rush to drugs or surgery anymore. They're doing things like yoga, going to the gym, becoming vegetarian and things of that nature. So the hospitals are scrambling right now to try to find other additional income sources. That's why you go into a medical cannabis workshop and you see all these medical doctors who are leaving the hospitals, moving into the holistic realm. And the reason they're doing it now because this system, the sick care system is done. It's done. And the only generation that's going to be able to revive the sick care system is the generation after me. It's a generation of these young kids who are doing prescription drugs right now, and they're doing them recreationally. But other than that, we're at the last frontier for the new age of medicine. So when you have nerve pain and joint pain and all these different types of things, most people who come into my office already had 2 or 3 surgeries already. The definition of insanity is what? Expecting a different result, right? And so I know that a lot of the doctors, including myself, up until very recently, I was part of the problem. I was part of the insane. So what will happen is, if I have a patient that couldn't get well, I'm gonna send them to a pain doctor. And the pain doctor's gonna do what? Give you shots, steroid shots, things like that.
Yeah.
And those cortisone shots and steroid shots and stuff they're giving you are wearing those joints down faster. The cortisone shots are designed to break down scar tissue, and a lot of times it actually will break down good, healthy tissue as well. And so when it happens, you build more scar tissue. Every time you cut your hand, aren't you going to build a scar? So what happens, you think, when they cut your chest open, they cut your knees open, they cut your hips open, they cut your shoulders open, now you get scar tissue, and that scar tissue is wrapping itself around the nerves. So when the nerves become affected, the nerves don't have any other way to communicate to you that you have a problem other than what? Pain. And the crazy part about it is only 10% of our brain is actually designed to detect pain. The other 90% is designed to actually help you with balance, function, sleep, metabolism, and things of that nature. So you have all these doctors focusing on 10% of what the brain and the body actually does. It's no wonder why when you look at the top 3 causes of death for Americans, all 3 of those have to do with our healthcare system. The 3rd leading cause of death for Americans is our medical system. Adverse reactions to prescription drugs and medications properly prescribed by your doctors, botched surgeries, infections in hospitals, and things of that nature, right? Number 2 is cancer. It's the 2nd leading cause of death for Americans. Well, what's the #1 cause of death for cancer patients? We talked about it earlier today. It is the treatment. So now number 2 and number 3 are all our healthcare system. Number 1, the #1 cause of death is heart disease. Where do we get all of our recommendations about what we need to eat for a healthy heart? Our doctors. So when you add that up, you're talking about 4 to 5 million people every single year are dying at the hands of their doctors. This is why the NRA, the National Rifle Association, don't worry, I'm not getting too political with this, I'm just going to tell you, the NRA stated that you're 9 times more likely to die at the hand of your doctor than you are by a firearm. And that's including kids who grew up on the south side of Chicago like I did. So where are we? Right now we're looking at like, what are your alternatives? What do you have to offer? And so there's different things that you can do. First, understanding how the body heals. The body always heals from above down, inside out, meaning that what makes us unique from a body that is no longer living is that there is life force inside of that body, right? So if you took a dead body and you gave them like apples, the dead body couldn't do anything with it. But if somebody was on their deathbed and somebody's ready to pull the plug and that person squeezes your hand, how many of you would continue to pull with pulling a plug? You wouldn't, right? Because that's, what that means is more hope. They're still alive. So a lot of people, we do these seminars. We have another one next Monday, the following Monday in different cities. I hear all the time people say, "I'm too old to do anything. I'm 85. I'm 95. There's nothing I can do." I said, "Look, as long as you can squeeze, you're still alive. And as long as you're still alive, you can work." And Jacqueline Lane lived to be 97 years old. And Bob Hope lived to be, I think, 340 years old. Like, when he finally died, I actually like, wait, what? I thought he was dead a long time ago. But he's still around for a very long time because it's not about how your genes or your genetics, because genetically, each and every one of us in this room are almost genetically identical. Each and every one. I just happen to carry a little bit darker tan than some of you Italians. But for the most part, so we know that if it's genetic, then tell me, where's the high blood pressure gene? And where is the knee pain gene? The arthritis gene. Arthritis and all these words that they use, all they just are descriptors. So like, for example, arthritis, all it means, arthro means joints, itis, this means inflammation in the joints. Neuropathy. Neuropathy means disease. So you don't have to be a senior citizen to have neuropathy. Anybody with pressure on their nerves can have neuropathy. So that's why we have a lot of people who come in, they may have numbness in their legs and their feet, but then we check their spine, what we'll find is what? They have vertebrae sitting out of alignment, putting pressure on different nerves. So what if I have pressures on the nerves in my neck? So if I've been in an auto accident or something like that, if anybody ever been in an accident before, how do you feel afterwards? You feel great? Terrible. You feel terrible, right? But what happens is, if you don't get the proper treatment, your body's going to lay down scar tissue. When your body lays down scar tissue, that's why you feel stiff and sore. How many of you all wake up in the morning feeling stiff and sore? All right, raise your hand. It's okay to raise your hand. Right? You feel stiff and sore, it's because you're not moving the same way as you did when you was back in the Navy or the Army. Back when you was in the Army, you had probably like a 6-minute mile and you're running every single day. And now you're 70, 80 years old. You're not moving as well as you want to. And I'm sharing with you that I spent majority of my career working with seniors. And I've had patients that was 106 years old that I was still able to put lean muscle mass on them. And I had patients who had strokes and I was able to get them back on their feet walking, because we got people in our office right now. And we have patients who had heart attacks and all these types of things. But what happened is, when I was in the cardiac rehab facility, if you had a heart attack and I was in that facility, the chances are I was going to be around to see you have your second heart attack. Right? And if you're lucky enough that you survived the first one, because most people don't, then a lot of times say, well, what causes it? And I recently experienced my father-in-law who had a cardiac event. Instead of them trying to do something to his diet to change the reason why the arteries got blocked, they just did a bypass. So they bypassed the area that was affected. So what that means is, down the line, those new arteries that they transferred from the body are going to get blocked again, and then you're going to keep going through the same thing.